And welcome back to Stasis, everyone. We are finally at Seed, the infamous Project Seed that's been talked about in so many documents. There are a couple things to notice in this room, one of which is these power cells over here, one of which is closed, this power pad on the ground, which you just step on it and sparks a little, but mostly this toolbox.
Looks like this place is being expanded.
Seed was always expanding. That place scares me.
Thanks.
Sorry.
That item we just picked up is a high-temperature slug gun, which will come in handy later on. But for now, let's examine this power cell housing. You'll see that symbol on it. Now, obviously, this power cell is locked. But we're going to encounter a couple other things similar to this later on. And our goal for this area is to find a way to open up this power cell. So keep that in mind as we're going through some of these riddles later on. I will say the puzzle for opening up the power cells in particular is not the most obvious solution. It took me a while to get it the first time around, but for now I'm going to make a safety save because, well, things are about to get a little messy.
Warning. Halothane hepatotoxicity is at an elevated level.
And we just got the shredded achievement. So yeah, if you just stand still when you walk into that area, a patrolling robot will shoot you. So you have to immediately go off into one of these wings. It doesn't matter if you go to the left or to the right, because there's something you have to do in each area first before you can find a way to get around this robot. Now, you don't have to go too far out of its line of sight, because as long as you're off to the sides of those crates, it won't see you. It has a very limited range of sight. Tunnel vision, I guess you would call it. But for now, let's go to the mutagen labs. And, oh, that's a wonderful thing laying on the table over there.
Can you hear me? Do you know what? Where are you?
I have a feeling if this thing could form words or sentences, it would just say, "Kill me." But yeah, there's all kinds of grotesqueness laying around this lab, so let's distract ourselves with a little PDA reading first. Say hello to Dr. Clifford Backman, who is a horrible person, knows he's a horrible person, and doesn't really care. He's also quite promiscuous, as he's had several daughters who don't know he's their father. After Dr. Milan gives the crew a speech, Dr. Backman knows that Milan is full of shit, but just keeps going about his business anyway, working on a gas that can kill people more effectively, and making sure that he has a front row seat to watch test subjects of said gas. Meanwhile, he's also working on DNA splicing, which we'll get more into later, and says that he's running out of test subjects, saying that the best ones are typically crew members, but you can only take so many of those before people start to notice. He also says the furnaces they use to get rid of failed test subjects, he calls them, aren't adequate enough, but they did find another way to dispose of the bodies, which will be brought up later. Meanwhile, the doctor is also addicted to a drug called Pathway, which is being supplied by another assistant in the labs called DeSantos. He strongly suspects DeSantos isn't really a doctor and that he has ulterior motives, but we will find DeSantos' PDA later to expound upon that. And he also mentions how gloriously incompetent Charlotte is for killing her assistant and then falling in love with him. Accidentally killing him, mind you. As time passes, he doesn't get the Pathway drug as often as he used to and starts going through withdrawal, which causes him to violently lash out and kill one of his subjects. He also mentions that Project Seed has found another way to dispose of bodies, which involves grinding up the test subjects into a sort of mulch. But that mulch takes on a life of its own and becomes the fungus that was growing around the ship. Then one day, Dr. Backman gets attacked by somebody. He doesn't know who. But he wakes up in the infirmary with casts on both of his legs. His kneecaps have been broken. As time goes on, the creatures that they created start to take over the ship and kill all of the crew members. And while Dr. Milan is overjoyed at his new creations, taking over, Dr. Bachman is not so enthusiastic and wants to secure some sort of escape from the ship. Needless to say, that doesn't exactly happen. And the final entry is just one long threat about all the horrible things he will do to anyone who stands in the way of his escape, including Dr. Milan. Now that's just what happened according to Dr. Bachman. But there's another PDA over at this terminal, which will give us another side of the story that's going on in Project Seed, that of his supplier, Marvin DeSantos. As Dr. Bachman suspected, Marvin here is not really a doctor, he just gets that title from being a part of Project Seed. But he also has some contacts, and Milan hates that DeSantos keeps importing stuff to make the pathway drug, but that drug keeps Bachman in order, so Milan just lets it happen. He then goes on about his sexual escapades with a girl in shipping, and Dr. Charlotte Williams, who apparently has a lot more to her than meets the eye. Then he reveals that one of his contacts is from Black Star Industries, and he's been involved in industrial espionage, sending reports about what Kane Corporation is doing on the Groom Lake, and getting a hell of a lot of money for it too. He knows that the clock is ticking and he'll need to get out soon, but he still wants to send 1 or 2 reports so that he can get them all the details they're looking for and enough money that he can do whatever he wants. He suspects a guy named Lincoln might know what he's up to, but he can't know for sure. But even if he does, the ship is falling apart, so who cares? Some of those things that Bachman and Milan created start prowling around, and Milan still keeps having people report to the lab, and as he's doing this, he's really calm, and he's smiling a lot, and he seems like he's really enjoying all the chaos that's about to erupt. Then the lab gets sealed off, Dr. Charlotte Williams gets dragged off, and he resolves that he's going to find a way through the ship because he knows a bunch of hidden pathways and rooms that even Dr. Milan doesn't know about, and find his way to the communications deck to release an emergency distress beacon. And once he does this, he says that he hopes they'll get to him before Dr. Milan finds out, which tells you a lot about Dr. Milan. Then again, at this point, we pretty much already have a good idea about Dr. Milan. Now, as you can probably already tell about this room, aside from the PDAs, there are several dialogue triggers. Just walking up to that writhing mass was one of them, but we can also check a couple of cadavers and walk a little further into the room, and trigger a couple other dialogue sequences.
Oh, the stench. How long have they been here?
How can we allow this?
This is the purpose of the Groom Lake. It's not on Earth. People can't see it, so they don't care.
What if they knew?
So what?
Well, aren't you pessimistic?
If they were more open, this wouldn't happen.
Open to who? The people? Governments?
Other corporations.
What cost?
A bit of our humanity, I suppose.
Going to the bottom of this room, we are going to see a terminal, but more importantly, under the terminal is a liquid nitrogen canister. And we are going to need that for one of the puzzles, actually in the next room. Well, the room next to us, not the next room we're going to... You know what I mean. But more importantly, there are also 3 terminals here. The terminals here have details about what went wrong with the dead experiment on the table, but that's not the important thing about these terminals. 2 of these terminals offer hints about puzzles you will encounter later on, namely with this drawing, which looks like that gun we have shooting at the canister we just picked up. I don't know why someone pasted that to the terminal. They just did. Now this terminal doesn't have anything on it, so I'm just going to leave this up for a little bit in case anybody wants to read it. But otherwise, it's not terribly important. It's just background lore. What's really important is on the 3rd one, because instead of a post-it stuck to the thing, there's an instruction manual, an operator's manual for the slug gun. As you can see, it has a picture of a dude wielding the gun while standing on top of one of those power pads. Like the one that we saw in the previous room, which was kinda not working right. Anyway, that and the thing we just saw on the other one with the drawing of the gun shooting the canister, those are part of a puzzle. But we don't have access to that puzzle yet, so instead, let's go into the birthing lab. Brace yourself.
The words. I can't even.
What do you see?
What kind of a monster would do this? These women. These poor women. This is torture. This is.
Science.
These women must have families and lives.
You can't do anything for them now. Soon this ship will run out of oxygen. They won't be in pain for much longer.
A second in this place is more torture than anyone should bear.
Just breathe in and out. Soon we'll wake up from this. I'm here to help. I'm gonna help you. Just close your eyes.
They don't look human.
Hybrids?
I can't tell.
I really hope YouTube's not going to punish me for not censoring the barely alive pregnant women hooked up to machines. But, yeah, they are having women give birth to DNA-spliced hybrid babies. And, oh hey, a defibrillator.
A defibrillator. And it looks like it's fully charged.
Man, he got over that quickly. Anyway, this computer has an explanation of what happened to some of the hybrid babies, and what exactly Project Seed is. Long story short, it's a way to create the ultimate super soldier by awakening junk strands of DNA, which, according to a past researcher, Professor Salam Gerund, it's not junk DNA, just potential genetic information suppressed by dominant genes. The beings he created were uncontrollable animal creatures, but Dr. Milan wants to find a way to better control and bring out specific bits of genetic information to make something more intelligent, more obedient, and basically more subservient. That way they don't just kill anything that moves. The rest of these entries are from 3 different doctors, Williams, Beckman, and Milan, about the breeding and birthing process of hybrid 302. That's just the number they assign to it. And all the various medical complications that arise as it grows and is born. Like, it has trouble breathing, it's sickly, probably has a weakened nervous system, and all the different problems that arise, like the failure of molecules to bond between the mutated and host DNA from the mother. It's just a mess. For now, though, it's worth noting that panel in the middle is a power cell, much like the one we saw in the room we started in, and there was also one in the previous lab, which we didn't look at. You might notice the symbol is at a different angle. That doesn't matter at all. It's just a cosmetic thing. Also, while you have that picture up, you can walk around with John by just clicking random spots on the panel. Okay, so now we need to find a way to get past this security robot. But how do you do it? Well, you have to pay very close attention to your surroundings. Particularly, look at what is around John right now. It looks like just a bunch of crates. But if you look a little closer, you'll notice that one of them is not a crate, but a sink. And they mention in the description that it stands out from everything else. And that should be your hint that this sink is going to be key to getting past that robot. So we can see that the water runs in the sink, which is great, but doesn't help us much, unless we use those bandages we got off of the pregnant woman. Sorry, I don't remember if I mentioned that or not. and we're going to plug up the drain with them. It's okay, the robot's not going to see us do any of this. Now, we use the sink again, and this time the water is going to overflow and conveniently go right into the path where the robot stops and turns around. And as it does that, we're going to use the portable defibrillator on the standing water and... Don't ask me how we didn't get electrocuted, either from the initial shock or from walking in the water and touching the robot.
Easy does it. God, I just hate it. Out. Got it.
Now, what in the hell did we just pull off of that robot? Was it the gun that it shot us with earlier? No, of course not. It's just a piece of twisted metal. Doesn't sound like much, but it will play a role later on. For now, though, we can get past that robot into this other area, which the only thing here is an elevator platform, which will take us up to the second level. Here our options are limited, because we just have a force field blocking our way down and an airlock blocking our way forward.
Warning. The oxygen atmosphere generating system is no longer functioning. Product failure is imminent.
We're gonna die. Awesome. Anyway, you can stand on this power pad, and that will send power into the slug gun that we have in our inventory. And if you remember that picture from the manual, that's exactly what we're supposed to do. But if you just try doing it right away, you're not going to do much damage to the airlock. Pretty much nothing happens. But there was also that drawing of the gun shooting a canister. So what we can do is put that liquid nitrogen canister next to the airlock, like so. And now we'll go back to the power pad and use the slug gun, specifically shooting the canister, not just the airlock. And next time on Stasis, what in the hell is behind door number 3?